Hello, Oxford MBA candidates. My name is Trevor. I did my DPhil in theology at Wolfson College here at Oxford University. I'm standing in Oxford City Centre, just a 10-minute walk away from Said Business School, and today I'm going to be giving you a brief tour of Oxford University. Let's go. Behind me is the Divinity School. The Divinity School was built between 1427 and 1483. So they spent almost 60 years working on this building. So you could tell they really wanted to get this building right. This is the university's first purpose-built lecture hall and examination hall. The lectures and exams that took place here in the Middle Ages were intense. The medieval scholastic style of learning was very adversarial in style. Examinations in particular were very challenging. You'd have examiners on one side, candidates on another. Someone would moderate from a pulpit. They were oral exams, of course, because paper was really expensive at this time. They were in Latin. You were expected to respond quickly in Latin. And we've got documentation that confirms that sometimes these exams could go on for up to 3 days. King Charles I, when he was in a civil war with Oliver Cromwell, he brought his government to Oxford because it was an easier location to defend than his location in London was. And during a part of 1642, it was right inside these walls where his members of Parliament met. And it happened again under his son, King Charles II, because after the Great Fire of London in 1666, as if London didn't have enough problems, a plague broke out. And Charles II similarly brought his government here during that period as well. We are in the old school's quadrangle of the Bodleian Library. The Bodleian Library is our main research library here at the university. It was established all the way back in 1602 by Sir Thomas Bodley. More importantly though, 8 years later in 1610, Sir Thomas Bodley entered into an agreement with the Stationers' Company in London. And that agreement granted this library something called copyright status. And that means that this library is legally entitled to a copy of every book published in the United Kingdom. Now folks, if you Google this, you're going to discover that there's more than 13 million printed volumes here at the Bodleian Library. Now obviously there's no way they could fit in these four walls. That's why in the 1900s the university tunneled out 7 stories underneath the quad we're currently standing in order to house much of that collection. Now folks, this isn't the university's only library. All 39 of our colleges have their own libraries, and so do all of our departments and faculties as well. And it's a good thing because these other libraries will actually lend you the books. The Bodleian won't. The Bodleian is a reference-only library, and just to illustrate how serious they are about this, King Charles I wanted to borrow a book from this library, and they didn't let him. Behind me is the Sheldonian Theatre. The Sheldonian was completed in 1668 by the brilliant architect Sir Christopher Wren, best known for St. Paul's Cathedral in London. This building is used for all of our major ceremonies such as matriculation and graduation. It's also used for major debates, lectures, orchestral performances, but its other primary function is a ceremony that takes place every year at the end of June. It's called Insignia, and Insignia is when Oxford gives out its honorary degrees. Behind me is the University Church of St. Mary. Now, much of this current structure dates to the 14th and 15th centuries, except for the tower. That's actually the oldest part. It dates all the way back to the 1270s. But there's been a church here since Saxon times. Now, before the Divinity School was built, this was where lectures and exams would take place. Before our first libraries were built, rooms here at the University Church served as the university's library. And before the Sheldonian Theatre was built, this is where all of our official ceremonies, such as matriculation and graduation, would take place. This was also the seat of the university's government, and for that reason it's still the official church of the university even today. Hence its name, the University Church of St. Mary. we are at Hartford College, one of the colleges that accepts Oxford MBA students. This college was founded all the way back in 1282, but this hall merged with this hall to form Hartford College as we think of it today in 1874, and the famous Bridge of Sighs was added in 1913 to connect these two halls forming Hartford College. Now, Hartford's considered a very progressive college. So back in 1974, this was one of the first 5 all-male colleges to finally start accepting women. Also, historically, state school students had a harder time getting into Oxford and Cambridge. Well, there was a physics professor here at Hartford College back in the 1960s named Professor Neil Tanner. And Professor Tanner had enough of this, so he started something called the Tanner Scheme. And the goal of the Tanner Scheme was to encourage state school students to apply, but also to accept more state school students. This is also the College of William Tyndale, the person who famously translated the Bible from its original languages into English. It's also the College of Evil and War, the brilliant novelist behind books such as Brideshead Revisited and Decline and Fall. It's also the College of Thomas Hobbes, the philosopher who wrote Leviathan. But Hartford College's most famous fellow is arguably the college cat. There's a black cat with green eyes, lives in the Porter's Lodge with the porter here at Hartford College. The cat's name is Simpkin, and the current Simpkin is the 4th Simpkin in his lineage. Here we are at Green Templeton College. This college was formed in 2007 with the merger of Green and Templeton colleges. It's very popular amongst Oxford MBA students because of its large, diverse, and international graduate community. It's particularly popular among our students with families because Green Templeton College's on- and off-site student accommodations have houses for couples, sharers, and families. C.S. Lewis was a professor of English literature here at Oxford University for more than 20 years at Magdalen College, which is just to say that he had plenty of reasons to walk past this door, one of many entrances to Brasenose College. It's become affectionately known as the Narnia door here in Oxford. Now, if you're a fan of the Narnia series of books such as The Lion, The Witch, and the Wardrobe, a couple of characters are probably going to jump out at you from this door right away. So in the center of the door, there's the face of a lion, which everybody knows as Aslan, of course, and up top there's a couple of fawns, and this is where Lewis is said to have gotten his idea for the character Mr. Tumnus. Here we are in front of the Radcliffe camera. The Radcliffe camera was built between 1737 and 1748 by a brilliant architect named James Gibbs. Now, I promise if you Google Oxford University, an image of this iconic building is going to be one of the first things that comes up. But actually, not much happens here. It's just a reading room. It's a beautiful reading room. I love working in here, but it's just a reading room. It's called a camera for the same reason your camera is called a camera. So if you think back to what the very first cameras used to look like, the word just comes from the Latin for a vaulted room or chamber. So it's kind of in reference to its dome top and its round shape. And it's called the Radcliffe camera because of John Radcliffe. Now, John Radcliffe was a genius, there's no doubt about it. Radcliffe studied here at Oxford at University College at just 13 years old, then became a fellow of Lincoln College at just 18 years old. He then went on to become the personal physician to King William III and to the royal court. And over the course of his lifetime, he amassed an enormous amount of wealth and influence, and later in his life, he became a member of Parliament. When he passed away, he left a huge sum of money to the university, and a good chunk of it was used for the building of this, the Radcliffe camera, which used to be a stand-alone library that was dedicated to the sciences. But today, it's just another reading room forming part of the wider Bodleian complex. And with that, this concludes our brief tour of Oxford University. On behalf of the university, we are looking forward to welcoming you in our beautiful city soon.